The scent of icy death invaded her nostrils, dense, wild, and she knew, not through her eyes long lost to darkness, but through the vibration in the permafrost, the frigid air that bristled, and the sepulchral silence that swallowed the wind's whispers. 7 colossal shadows approached, each weighing over 1,000 kilograms of fury and hunger, and Anya's heart, the blind elder of Yakutia, beat like an ancestral drum, announcing the imminent invasion of polar bears. A scream caught in her throat was her village's only chance, and she knew that to save everyone, she would have to face the approaching darkness with a courage that not even the most brutal winter could freeze. And what she would do would change her people's destiny forever. Anya did not hesitate. Her calloused hands fumbled for the tent's opening. The biting cold outside was palpable, but the mental image of the colossal bears advancing on the defenseless herd was infinitely colder. With a deep sigh, she pushed herself forward, emerging into the merciless vastness of the Yakutian night. The wind whipped her wrinkled face, but she barely felt it, focused on the imminent task of salvation. Her ears, sharpened by years of darkness, caught every nuance. The crunch of snow under heavy paws, the guttural growl coming from the frozen earth. 7. She felt them, perceiving the colossal mass of each. The vibration in the permafrost was a map beneath her bare feet, indicating their calculated approach, their wild hunger. The metallic scent of death, now denser, mingled with the salty odor of the predators, a primal warning that chilled the blood. The village, deeply asleep in its beds, remained oblivious to the threat just meters away. Anya moved with silent determination, her feet finding every irregularity of the frozen ground with instinctive precision. Her arms extended forward like sensitive antennae, guided her to the strategic point dictated by ancestral wisdom. She knew she could not confront the bears with brute force. Her strength resided in the unbreakable connection with the earth and its guardian spirits. The reindeer enclosure, the village's heartbeat, was a few dozen steps away. The terrified silence of the animals, once a whisper, was now a mute scream that Anya felt in every cell. Huddled and trembling, they awaited the inevitable. The elder's heart beat strongly, but not from panic. It was a war drum, an ancestral rhythm that propelled her. She needed to buy time for the young warriors, exhausted, to awaken and prepare, for the herd to be moved to a safe location. The ancient call, whispered through generations, was her only weapon. Not a war cry, but a guttural melody. A deep lament that mimicked the primal sounds of the tundra, capable of confusing and disorienting the wildest beasts. Anya stopped. Her feet felt the intense vibration of the bears, now just meters from the reindeer enclosure. She could almost feel their warm, hungry breath in the frigid air, the overwhelming proximity of their colossal masses. Her lips trembled, not from cold, but from the concentration to invoke ancestral strength. Her slender fingers rose slightly, as if touching the invisible air. Her head tilted back, opaque eyes fixed on an invisible point in the starry sky beneath the silently dancing aurora borealis. An omen. Inside the tents, the silence was almost absolute, broken only by the soft breathing of the sleepers. No one, except Anya, perceived the colossal shadow that stretched over the village, the threat to its existence. She was the silent guardian, the blind sentinel who saw further than anyone. And then the sound began. Not a loud sound, but a deep, resonant murmur that seemed to emerge from the depths of the earth. A chant that spoke of past eras, of ice and life, of respect and power. It was Anya's call, and it spread through the frigid air, carrying the hope of an entire community. Anya's ancient call, a deep and resonant murmur, was not a sound of attack, but of profound disturbance. It vibrated through the permafrost, traveled up the massive paws of the polar bears, and echoed in their hungry brains. The 7 beasts, previously focused on their prey, stopped abruptly. Their wild eyes, burning with the promise of flesh, showed confusion and caution. They tilted their enormous heads, sniffing the air, trying to decipher the origin of that primal sound. It was not a rival's roar, nor a prey's lament. It was something older, an echo of the tundra that disoriented them. Their colossal bodies were motionless, claws suspended. Anya had succeeded, freezing death's advance for a precious instant. Anya, standing in the icy darkness, felt the tension in every muscle. The call demanded immense concentration, total connection with the earth and ancestral spirits. Her veins pulsed with the effort. The frigid air burned her lungs. She did not see the bears, but she felt their hesitation, the pause in their murderous impulse. An invisible web of sound and intention enveloped them. Her slender fingers seemed to shape the very air, maintaining the guttural melody. Cold sweat trickled down her forehead. She could not stop. The village's destiny, the lives of her people and reindeer, depended on that voice that defied nature's fury. Inside the enclosure, the reindeer, previously trembling, now cautiously raised their heads. Blind panic gave way to instinctive curiosity. They sensed the predators, but the strange sound seemed to create an invisible barrier, a vibrating shield. Their large, dark eyes watched the colossal shadows of the bears, white statues in the snowfield. A calf dared to raise its head, its damp muzzle sniffing the air. The threat had not disappeared, but the paralyzing terror had diminished, giving them a glimpse of hope that Anya planted in the night. In the tents, the silence was deep, but no longer absolute. Tuma, one of the young warriors, felt an unusual chill. It was not the cold, but a disturbance in the night's stillness. He opened his eyes and listened, the absence of other sounds. The wind had diminished, the distant howls ceased, the occasional creak of ice had fallen silent. There was a tension in the air, an unnatural quietness that alerted him. He sat up, his heart beating faster. His eyes swept across the tent where his family slept. Something was wrong. The wisdom of his people taught that nature was never completely silent. Careful not to wake anyone, Tuma stood up. He picked up his bow and arrows. Feeling the cold wood, he put on his reindeer hide coat. The sound, or lack thereof, called him outside. He approached the tent opening, peering out. The aurora borealis danced in the sky, ethereal beauty that contrasted with the apprehension. He saw Anya's figure, small and bent, a few meters from the reindeer enclosure. She seemed to be chanting? A low, guttural chant he had never heard, but which resonated with ancestral strength. And then he saw the shadows, 7 of them, colossal, white, motionless. Tuma's blood ran cold. Polar bears, 7 of them, and Anya, the blind elder, alone, confronting them with a chant. The realization hit him with an icy thud. The herd, the village, everything in danger. Anya's courage, her unwavering resilience, was a beacon in the darkness. Tuma did not hesitate. He turned quickly, silently, to wake the other warriors, not with shouts, but with firm touches and urgent whispers. "Bears, 7, Anya is holding them." The message would be passed from tent to tent. The village began to awaken to action, guided by the voice of the elder who, even without sight, had perceived the danger and raised an invisible shield of hope. Tuma moved with a hunter's agility, his heart pounding, his mind sharpened by the icy urgency. He reached Bor's tent, the eldest of the young warriors, and touched his shoulder. Bor awoke, his eyes heavy, but his expression transformed into alertness upon seeing Tuma's grave face. "Bears. 7. Anya is holding them," Tuma whispered. Bor needed no more. The mention of Anya, the blind elder, alone against colossal bears, was a weight no man ignored. He nodded, his mouth a grim line, and already turned to wake his own. The message flowed from tent to tent, with somber seriousness in the frigid air. The warriors' faces, previously relaxed, now displayed shock, fear, and growing determination. They picked up their weapons, sharp spears, taut bows, hunting knives, with silent movements, feeling the weight of responsibility. Adrenaline coursed through their veins, chasing away sleep and focusing their minds on the task. They were few, but Anya's unwavering courage ignited in them the flame of ancestral resilience, preparing them for the imminent and vital confrontation. The village, still in silence, pulsated with contained energy, each one preparing for what was to come. Meanwhile, Anya stood firm, the guttural melody flowing from her lips with a strength that defied her age. The effort was immense, her throat was dry, her muscles burned with the tension of sustaining the call. She felt the cold penetrate her bones, but concentration was a flame that kept her warm within, connected to the earth. The bears, still motionless, were like mountains of ice and fury, just meters from the enclosure. She felt them, their overwhelming presence. The metallic scent of death hung in the air, mixed with the odor of moss, a sign of confusion but not of retreat. They sniffed, growled softly, but Anya's call created an invisible barrier, a sonic force field that prevented them from advancing. She knew the pause was fragile, a thin thread that could break, and every second was a victory. Inside the tents, the women and elders, awakened by the whispers, began to move. No shouts, just swift, silent movements, each knowing that destiny was at stake. Mothers hugged their children, eyes wide with fear, but also with unwavering faith in Anya and the warriors. Elders like Naila, whose snow-white hair blended with the snow, raised their hands in silent prayer to the spirits of the tundra, asking for protection and strength for the elder. The older men prepared torches and ropes, ready to help move the herd or create distractions. Tuma and Bor, with 5 other warriors, were outside, peering. They saw Anya, small against the night, and the 7 white giants, motionless, hypnotized by her chant. "We need a plan," Bor whispered. "The bears won't stay still for long." Tuma nodded. "Scare them away without harming them, and protect the reindeer." The village, awake, was united and ready to fight, inspired by Anya's inner vision. "We need a plan," Bor whispered, his voice deep but firm, to the 5 warriors. Tuma nodded. "Scare them away without harming them, and protect the reindeer." Bor gestured, detailing fire and noise. Tuma and Kale to the left, I and the others to the right. Don't attack, just intimidate. Push them away from the enclosure towards that ice ridge. Synchronization and wisdom were crucial, the key to success. As they prepared, Anya felt the change in the air. The vibration in the permafrost revealed the swift movements of the young ones. They were awake and preparing. Relief and gratitude washed away the exhaustion. Her throat ached, the ancestral melody becoming a hoarse whisper. But she maintained it, a sonic shield, protecting the reindeer and buying vital time. The bears, however, showed impatience. Anya's continuous growl did not satisfy their hunger. One of the larger bears scratched the ice with a sharp claw. Its eyes gleamed with irritation. Another let out a deep growl. Anya's barrier was under pressure, about to give way at any moment. Inside the tents, the village was in a silent frenzy. Women wrapped hides around their children, eyes fixed on the openings. Elders lit torches. The yellow flame danced on their faces. Naila, with snow-white hair, held her granddaughter's hand, whispering, "She is our rock, always has been." Faith in Anya united everyone on that icy night. The warriors moved. Tuma and Kale crawled silently through the snow, bows ready, keeping to the shadows. Bor and the others did the same from the opposite side. The audacious plan was to create a wall of fire and sound to divert the bears without confronting them. Intelligence and unity were their only weapons against the threat. Sunya, sensing the warrior's approach, intensified her chant. Her lungs burned, her head spun, but the image of the defenseless reindeer and the faces of the village gave her strength. She was the bridge between darkness and hope, guardian of everyone's life. Suddenly, a sharp cry from Tuma broke the silence, followed by the snap of a dry branch. Simultaneously, Boar and the others lit their torches, raising them into the air, creating a flickering line of fire. The smell of burning wood and the sound startled the bears. They turned, huge heads swiveling, wild eyes fixed on the new threats. Anya's chant, though weakened, still held them in confusion. But the warriors' new offensive was a challenge they could not ignore. The battle for the village's survival began, Anya's courage igniting the first flame of resistance and hope. Tuma's roar and the snap of the branch were like thunder in the icy night, breaking the tense stillness. The torches of Boar and the other warriors danced, casting ghostly shadows on the snow. The 7 polar bears, previously paralyzed by Anya's ancestral chant, now turned, their massive heads swiveling in unison. Their eyes, which a moment before burned with the promise of flesh, now reflected a mix of surprise and irritation, an unexpected challenge. The smell of smoke and the heat of the fire, elements strange to their silent hunt, invaded their keen senses. They growled, a deep sound that vibrated in the permafrost but did not advance immediately. The intimidation strategy was working. Anya, though exhausted, felt the change, a shift in the flow of the threat. The vibration in the ground, previously a compact mass of predators, now divided, reacting to the warrior's movements. Relief, tenuous as a torch flame, warmed her chest. She knew she had bought time, but the battle was far from over. Her chant, now a hoarse and faint whisper, still wove a subtle barrier, keeping the bears in check for a few more moments. But the strength to sustain it diminished with each passing second. Her lips trembled, and the cold seemed to deepen in her bones, but she could not give in. Tuma and Kyle, crouched behind a snowdrift, kept their bows ready. Not to shoot, but in case an extreme distraction was needed. Their eyes were fixed on the bears, observing every movement, every growl. Kyle, the youngest, pressed his lips together, fear mixed with determination on his pale face. Boar, more experienced, gestured with the torch, moving slowly to the right, pushing the bears away from the reindeer enclosure. The other warriors followed him, forming a defensive line of fire and courage. Inside the enclosure, the reindeer, previously static, now stirred with a new kind of fear. The fire and the shouts of the humans were as strange as the presence of the bears. They pushed against each other, but not in blind panic, rather with an urgency of movement, as if they felt that the time to flee was approaching. Anya's invisible barrier, combined with the audacious action of the warriors, was creating the opportunity for the herd to be protected. In the tense silence was replaced by murmurs of apprehension and hope. Nyla, the white-haired elder, held her granddaughter's hand tightly, her eyes fixed on the tent opening, moist with emotion. "They are fighting," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Our warriors, with Anya's strength." Other women joined, peering, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the torches that the older men lit. Some elders already had ropes and blankets, ready to help guide the reindeer to a safer location as soon as the warriors cleared a path. The bears, irritated by the fire and noise, began to retreat slowly. It was not a flight, but a movement of caution, of re-evaluation. Their heads still swiveled, their wild eyes trying to understand the small human's strange tactic. One of the larger bears let out a roar of frustration, slamming a paw on the ice, but the sound was muffled by the shouts and the crackling of the torches. Boar and Tuma, with their men, continued to advance, forming a semicircle. pushing the beasts towards the distant ice ridge. Anya, standing, felt victory approaching, but the exhaustion was overwhelming. Her body trembled, and she knew that her role was almost fulfilled. The warriors, young and strong, now took the front line. She allowed her chant to diminish further, almost a whisper in the frigid wind of the long night. The light of the torches, even though she could not see it, was a beacon of hope that spread through the village, pushing back the shadows of darkness and threat. The unity of all, inspired by her courage, was saving their community. The unity of all, inspired by her courage, was saving their community. The bears, though retreating, did so with a calculated slowness, their massive bodies moving with a deceptive grace over the snow. Deep growls escaped their throats, and their wild eyes, fixed on the torches and the warriors, showed growing irritation, not genuine fear. They seemed to ponder the situation, evaluating the humans' strange tactic. Boar and Tuma, with the other 5 men, maintained the line, advancing step by step, with each movement an icy sigh escaping their lips. Their spears, once weapons of attack, now served as extensions of their will, pointing away, guiding the beasts towards the ice ridge. Anya, standing in the darkness, felt exhaustion gnawing at her last strengths. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and the cold penetrated every fiber of her being, but her mind remained clear. The ancestral chant, now an almost inaudible thread, was the last barrier that prevented the bears from turning and attacking with all their fury. She felt the tension in the air, the predator's hesitation, and the warrior's determination. Every fiber of her being cried out for rest, but she knew she could not give in. Her slender fingers, previously raised, now fell slowly, the ancestral melody almost dissolving into the wind. Inside the tents, the murmur of apprehension had transformed into a tense quietness. The women and elders watched through the openings, their hearts beating in unison with the rhythm of the silent battle. Nyla, her eyes moist, squeezed her granddaughter's hand so tightly that her knuckles were white. "They will succeed," she whispered, more to herself than to the child, a silent prayer to the spirits of the tundra. The older men, with lit torches and ropes in hand, awaited the signal to guide the reindeer to safety, their wrinkled faces displaying a mix of hope and concern. Suddenly, the largest of the bears, a mountain of white fur and muscle, stopped. Its eyes, previously irritated, now gleamed with a cold, dangerous intelligence. It ignored the torches and the shouts, and instead of continuing its retreat, slowly turned its head, fixing its gaze on the reindeer enclosure. A deep growl, different from the previous ones, vibrated in the air, a sound that spoke of a decision made, of a hunger that would no longer be contained by tricks. It lowered its colossal head, and with surprising speed for its size, broke through the warrior's line, advancing directly towards the enclosure. Shock ran through the warriors. The plan to push the bears away without direct confrontation had been broken. Tuma shouted, a sound of alarm and despair, while Boar, his eyes wide with alarm, tried to intercept the giant. But the bear was too fast, its charge unstoppable. Anya felt the abrupt change, the vibration in the permafrost transforming from a hesitant retreat to a relentless advance. Her heart leaped, an icy premonition. She knew the danger was now real and imminent, more than ever. The bear was just meters from the enclosure, its enormous claws ready to tear through the fragile barrier of wood and snow. The reindeer, sensing the imminent danger, began to stir in panic, pushing against each other. Tuma and Boar, with the other warriors, ran desperately to intercept the beast, but it seemed too late. The herd's destiny, and with it the village's survival, hung by a thread. Anya's courage had ignited the flame, but now darkness threatened to swallow it again, and a new and terrible challenge presented itself. Anya, with a last and desperate burst of strength, raised her trembling hands. A scream, not of fear, but of pure will escaped her lips. It was not the ancestral chant, but a sharp and penetrating sound, a primal lament that seemed to tear the very fabric of the night. The bear, one step from the enclosure, stopped, not from fear, but from a sudden and inexplicable disorientation. Its wild eyes diverted from the enclosure, fixing on Anya, the small figure emitting that impossible sound. For a second, time seemed to freeze, the village's destiny suspended in the frigid air, while the blind elder faced nature's fury with a courage beyond comprehension. Anya's primal lament, raw and penetrating, struck the colossal polar bear like an invisible force. Its wild eyes, previously fixed on the vulnerable flesh of the reindeer, diverted to the small, trembling figure that somehow dared to defy it. It was not a sound of physical threat, but of an ancestral pain, of an indomitable will that resonated with the very essence of the tundra. The bear, its paw raised to tear the fence, hesitated. Its massive body trembled not from fear, but from a primal perplexity. Never before had it encountered a creature that emitted such a sound that seemed to come not from the throat, but from the very soul of the earth. Tuma and Boar, desperately running to intercept the beast, saw the miracle. The bear, just centimeters from the enclosure, had stopped. Anya, small and fragile, stood before the giant, her arms outstretched, her face contorted by effort and pain, but her lips still emitted that strange and powerful sound. The other 5 bears, observing the scene, also seemed affected. Their growls diminished, and they stirred, moving their enormous heads as if Anya's sound was confusing their predatory instincts. Anya knew the pause was fleeting. The bear was not retreating, just disoriented. With the last drop of her energy, she took a step forward, an almost imperceptible movement, but charged with intent. Her scream transformed into a guttural whisper, a sound that seemed to call the frigid winds, the eternal snows, the spirits of the earth. It was a challenge, but also a plea, a reminder that life, even in the merciless vastness of Yakutia, deserved to be protected. She felt the permafrost beneath her feet, the connection with the earth that was her strength and her compass. Boar, sensing the chance, acted. "Fire! More fire!" he shouted, his voice hoarse, and he himself threw his torch onto a snowdrift closer to the bear, making the snow melt and hiss. The other warriors, inspired by Anya's courage and Boar's leadership, quickly followed suit, throwing torches to create a barrier of flames and smoke between the bear and the enclosure. The pungent smoke and sudden heat hit the bear, which, still stunned by Anya's sound, retreated a step, then another. The reindeer, inside the enclosure, felt the change. The blind panic began to diminish, replaced by a controlled restlessness. They moved away from the part of the enclosure where the bear had been, moving towards the center, seeking safety in the group. Nyla and the other elders, peering from the tents, let out sighs of relief, their hands squeezing those of their children and grandchildren. Hope, which seemed to have dissipated, rekindled, shining like the torches in the darkness. The largest bear, now surrounded by a semicircle of fire and smoke, and still under the effect of Anya's lament, let out a growl of frustration. It could no longer focus on the prey. The strange combination of sound, fire, and the determination of the small humans was too much. It turned slowly, its wild eyes sweeping the line of warriors and the flickering flames. The other 6 bears, which had stopped, now also began to move away, following the leader. They did not flee in panic, but retreated with a wild dignity, recognizing that the battle, for now, was lost. Anya, exhausted, felt the vibration of the bears moving away, their presences diminishing in the permafrost. The intense cold returned to penetrate her bones, and she felt her legs give way. Tuma and Boar ran to her, reaching her just as she collapsed. Their strong arms supported her, protecting her from the icy ground. "You saved them, Anya," Tuma whispered, his voice choked with emotion, while Boar nodded, his eyes full of respect and admiration. The elder, with a last breath, allowed darkness to envelop her, but not before feeling the warmth of her warrior's hands, the sound of the reindeer calming, and the promise of a new dawn for her village. The true vision she knew resided in the soul, and the flame of hope, ignited by her courage, had repelled the darkness. Anya's fragile body collapsed into Tuma and Bor's strong arms, a light weight, yet laden with the invisible strength that had saved everyone. Tuma held her with reverence, his eyes moist. Bor felt the feverish warmth on the elder's forehead. "Let's take her to the tent," Bor whispered, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and relief. She gave her all. The warriors, after driving away the bears, approached. Kyle knelt beside Anya. "She is incredible," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. The village breathed relief and gratitude. Naila, with her granddaughter in her arms, rushed through the snow. Seeing Anya inert, a moan escaped her. "My soul sister," she whispered, her voice broken, touching Anya's face. The older men helped carry the elder. Tuma and Bor gently lifted Anya, making way for the tent. Inside the tent, the fire's warmth was an embrace. Reindeer hides lined the floor, the dense air a refuge. Tuma and Bor laid Anya on soft hides. Naila was already heating water and preparing herbs. She touched Anya's pulse, her lips in prayer. The elder's face was serene, exhaustion palpable. The village women, one by one, entered, bringing blankets, tea, and comfort. Their eyes reflected gratitude and respect. They sat in silence, watching Naila care for Anya. The men outside organized the herd, moving the reindeer to a safe location. The immediate danger had passed, but vigilance was crucial. Tuma and Bor, after ensuring Anya's care, went outside. The night's cold was intense, but the threat of the bears had diminished. The sky lightened, announcing the dawn. They looked to the horizon, where the silhouettes of the 7 polar bears receded into the white vastness. Hunger would lead them far away, leaving the village in peace. Back in the tent, Anya slowly opened her eyes, her body heavy, her mind clearer. Darkness still danced, but the warmth and the scent of herbs were real. She felt Naila's hand. A smile appeared. "Are they gone?" she whispered. Naila squeezed her hand. "Yes, my sister, you saved them. You saved all of us, our herd, our hope." Anya closed her eyes again, a sigh of relief. She had fulfilled her mission. The village was safe, the reindeer protected. The sun would rise, bringing the promise of a new day, of renewed hope, forged in the elders' courage and the people's unity. The true vision lay in the soul, in the connection with the earth and in resilience, igniting the flame of life in the darkness. As the elder rested, the pale light of dawn began to peek through the tent's crevices, tinting the frigid air with shades of pink and orange. Outside, the silence that followed the bear's departure was no longer one of terror, but of an exhaustive peace. The warriors, with Tuma and Bor at the forefront, inspected the reindeer enclosure. The animals, though agitated, were unharmed, their dense bodies emitting steam into the frozen air. Tuma touched the wooden fence, checking for damage, a lump in his throat dissolving into a long sigh of relief. Bor, his shoulders slumped with fatigue, observed the gigantic paw prints of the bears in the snow, now receding towards the ice ridge, diminishing until they disappeared on the white horizon. Inside Anya's tent, Naila continued her silent care. She applied warm herbal compresses on her sister's forehead, whose pale lips still murmured inaudible words. The sweet scent of herbs mingled with the warmth of the fire, creating a sanctuary of healing and peace. The other village women, their faces marked by the night of vigil, came and went, bringing nutritious broths and additional blankets. Their eyes, previously full of apprehension, now shone with deep gratitude upon seeing Anya breathing calmly, though still immersed in a deep sleep. They knew that the lives of all of them, of their children and their herd, had been saved by that small woman. The older men, with their torches extinguished and ropes coiled, began to move with a new vigor. They helped check the reindeer, repair small sections of the fence, and prepare breakfast for the village. The murmur of voices, previously muffled by fear, now echoed with stories of the night, each recounting their part of the vigil, the panic, and the miracle Anya had performed. The community gathered, more united than ever, forged in adversity and shared courage. Anya awoke again hours later, feeling the warmth and Nyla's gentle touch. Darkness was still her companion, but the feeling of heaviness in her body had lessened. She felt the salty taste of a warm broth on her lips, offered by Nyla. "The village. Is it well?" she asked, her voice still weak, but with renewed clarity. Nyla smiled, her eyes moist. "Better than well, my sister. We are all here because of you. The herd is safe. The sun has risen and brought with it the promise of a new day for all of us." Anya felt a tear trickle from the corner of her eye, not from sadness, but from deep joy and relief. The connection with her people, with the earth, with life, was her true vision, and she had used that vision to ignite the flame of hope in the deepest darkness of the Yakutian winter. The village now began to rise again, inspired by its elders' resilience. The pale morning light filtered through the tent, painting the air with a soft glow. Anya rested, her breathing measured, the deep sleep a much-needed balm for her exhausted spirit. Nyla, ever vigilant, watched over her, her own face displaying the marks of a night spent in fear and prayer, now softened by relief. She prepared a new herbal tea, the earthy and comforting aroma filling the space, a promise of healing. Outside the tent, the village began to awaken to a different day. The tundra's silence, once oppressive, now seemed a protective blanket. The murmurs of voices, the crunch of snow underfoot, the distant crackle of firewood in the central fire, all sounded with new meaning, a hymn to preserved life. Tuma and Bor, with the other warriors, did not rest. Although the immediate danger had passed, vigilance was a lesson etched in fire and ice into the Yakutian soul. They inspected the village perimeter, checking each tent, each fire, ensuring that everything was in order. The young faces, previously tense with fear, now displayed a mature seriousness, a deeper understanding of each one's role in collective survival. Kale, the youngest, helped feed the reindeer, his movements careful, a newfound respect for the animals that were the heartbeat of their people. He stroked a calf's fur, feeling the warmth of life beneath his fingers, and in his eyes, a spark of admiration for Anya and the ancestral wisdom she represented. The village women, with Nyla at the forefront, organized the day with renewed energy. Warm broth was distributed, and, although portions were small due to persistent scarcity, each spoonful was savored with gratitude, a reminder of the night's victory. The children, curious and full of energy, played in the snow, their laughter echoing, a sound that the night before seemed impossible. Mothers watched them, their hearts still tight with the memory of danger, but now overflowing with renewed hope. The story of the blind elder who, with her voice and courage, had faced the white giants, was already beginning to be whispered, a legend born even before the sun reached its zenith, strengthening the community's bonds. Inside the tent, Anya opened her eyes again, feeling her strength slowly returning. Nyla was by her side, offering her more tea. "The village is rising again, sister," Nyla said, her eyes meeting Anya's with deep tenderness. "Your courage gave us a new beginning, a chance to fight against winter and hunger with renewed spirit." Anya smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of the tea descend her throat, warming her body and soul. She did not need to see to know that sunlight bathed the tundra, that life continued, and that the connection she felt with her people and with the earth was the true essence of her existence. Winter was still long, the scarcity of food, a persistent shadow, but the seed of hope had been planted, and the community's unity, strengthened by adversity, would be the fertile ground for its flourishing. Every gesture of care, every word of gratitude was an invisible thread that wove the tapestry of resilience, proving that, even in the deepest darkness, the human flame would never extinguish. The village now not only survived, but flourished in spirit, inspired by the vision of an elder who saw with her heart and guided everyone with her ancestral wisdom, a beacon of light for the days to come. Anya, though weak, felt the pulse of the village. The initial relief gave way to serene clarity, but to the acute perception of reality. The merciless winter and scarcity persisted. She rested on soft hides, the scent of Nyla's herbs enveloping her, listening to the sounds of the village, children's laughter, men's murmurs, the crackle of the fire. Each sound was life and a reminder of responsibility. Nyla, by her side, held her wrinkled hand, her eyes fixed on her sister's face, with concern and admiration. "You need to rest, Anya," she whispered. "Let us take care." Anya squeezed Nyla's hand. "I see, Nyla," she replied, her voice stronger. "I see what we have done and what we still need to do." Outside the tent, Tuma and Bor gathered the warriors. The euphoria of victory against the bears gave way to sobriety. The reindeer were safe, but for how long? The herd was thinning. The tundra, covered by thick ice, offered little food. Kyle, eyes downcast, watched the reindeer. "There's not much left for them," he murmured to Bor. "We need new pastures or the herd won't survive," Bor replied, apprehensive. Tuma felt the village's weight. Anya's courage had reanimated everyone, but hunger was an insidious enemy. He convened elders and warriors for a meeting in the central tent, where the fire crackled, warding off the cold. When Anya, supported by Nyla, entered, a respectful silence fell. Her steps were slow, but her posture radiated authority. She sat in the place of honor, near the fire, Nyla covering her with a wolf hide. Tuma began, "Anya saved us. Our herd is safe, but winter is long, food scarce. The reindeer cannot stay. We need a plan." Faces reflected the gravity. Elders nodded. Women exchanged apprehensive glances, thinking of their children. Rekindled hope confronted the harsh truth of daily survival. Anya listened, feeling the vibrations of voices and emotions. Despair, uncertainty, hunger. The silence after Tuma was heavy. Anya raised her head, her blind eyes fixed beyond the tent walls, as if consulting the spirits. "The bears were a sign," she began, her voice soft but firm. "They came because the earth is suffering. The ice is thick, food hidden. We cannot wait for winter to yield. We need to move." A murmur ran through the tent. Moving at the height of winter, with low temperatures and a weak herd, was dangerous, almost unthinkable. Tuma frowned. "Move, Anya." "Where to?" "The tundra is vast and unforgiving. The herd is weak." Bor nodded. Anya turned to Tuma, a smile appearing. "Southward," she said with unwavering conviction, "to the lower lands where the wind is less biting and the snow perhaps less deep. I feel the way. Our ancestors traveled it in times of need. Difficult, yes, but it is the only one that offers us pastures and guarantees our survival." Anya's words hung in the air, a challenge and a promise. The silence in the tent was one of deep contemplation. The arduous journey was daunting, seeing the herd perish even darker. Nyla squeezed Anya's hand with faith. Tuma and Bor exchanged glances, reflecting the magnitude of the decision. The blind elder, who had repelled the bears, proposed a journey that would demand all the village's strength and unity. The true battle against winter was just beginning. Anya, once again, would be their beacon, guiding them towards an uncertain future, yet full of hope. The community stood on the brink of a new and grand challenge, the climax of its resilience. The silence in the tent, after Anya's words, was heavy, laden with a dense mix of fear and a reluctant, yet undeniable, acceptance. Moving at the height of winter was an immense risk, a gamble against the very nature of Yakutia. But the alternative, the slow and relentless hunger that already lurked in their children's eyes, was even more terrifying. Tuma, the leader of the warriors, looked at Boar, their eyes exchanging a complex message of apprehension, respect, and finally, an iron determination. He knew deep in his soul that the elder was right. "She is right," Tuma finally said, his voice hoarse, breaking the silence with the force of a rock-cracking ice. "We cannot stay. We must trust Anya's wisdom, as we trusted her courage to drive away the bears." A murmur of agreement, a sound of relief and resignation spread among the elders, who nodded gravely. The women, who had previously exchanged glances of mute despair, now squeezed each other's hands, a new spark of hope igniting in their eyes, a flame that Anya had rekindled. The decision, though painful, was made. From that moment, the village plunged into a frantic, yet impressively organized preparation. Every member, from the youngest to the oldest, had a vital task. The tents, previously safe and warm homes, were dismantled with reverent care, their thick hides folded and tied into compact bundles for transport. The women packed the few belongings they possessed, essential cooking utensils, extra hides for warmth, Nyla's precious herbal remedies, each item a treasure in the icy vastness. The men, vigorously led by Tuma and Boar, prepared the sleds with a meticulousness bordering on obsession, reinforcing every tie, checking the wooden skis and bone runners, ensuring that each piece of equipment could withstand the brutality and weight of the journey. Kyle, with a seriousness that far surpassed his young age, helped guide the reindeer near the sleds, calming them with gentle touches and whispered words, feeling the fragility of their emaciated bodies, but also the silent strength of their resilient spirit. Enya, still weak and her body heavy, but her mind sharper than ever, remained in the central tent, listening to the sounds of preparation that vibrated through the permafrost. Nyla was constantly by her side, ensuring that she ate and rested, but also relaying information about the progress with loving detail. "Everything is being done, my sister," Nyla reported, her eyes moist with admiration and pride. "The village moves as one body, driven by your vision and your faith." Anya merely nodded, a faint smile on her lips, feeling the vibration of the community, the collective energy that transformed fear into an unwavering purpose. She knew that the journey would be the most difficult they had ever faced, a test of their very essence. But their unity was their greatest shield, stronger than any wind or ice. The dawn of the departure day was an austere spectacle of light and ice. The sun, still low on the horizon, painted the tundra in cold shades of blue and silver, a landscape of relentless beauty. The air was biting, each breath an icy stab in the lungs, but the village was ready. The sleds, now laden with their few belongings and the youngest children, formed a long and impressive line. The reindeer, emaciated by scarcity, but with a gleam of determination in their eyes, were harnessed, their hooves softly tapping on the compacted snow, a rhythm that promised continuity. Families embraced in silent farewells, a goodbye to their temporary home, a vow of faith in the uncertain future that lay ahead. Anya, supported by Nyla, was carefully placed in a special sled, cushioned with the softest hides. She felt the cold penetrate her clothes, but also the excitement and hope that emanated from her people, a human warmth that defied the environment. Tuma, mounted on his strongest reindeer, a born leader, gave the signal. A collective cry of "Southward" echoed across the tundra, not of thoughtless defiance, but of a deep and united resolution. The village began to move, a silent and determined procession, entering the white vastness. Each step was an act of faith, each breath a testament to human resilience. The journey had begun, and with it, the resolution of a conflict that went beyond hunger and cold. The affirmation that life would always find a way, guided by ancestral wisdom and the unwavering connection of a people. Anya felt the movement, the constant rhythm of the sleds and the reindeer, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. The true vision was not the ability to see the path, but to feel the direction of her people's heart towards hope. Anya felt the movement, the constant rhythm of the sleds and the reindeer, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. The true vision was not the ability to see the path, but to feel the direction of her people's heart towards hope. The days that followed were a succession of brutal challenges. The merciless wind whipped the tundra, raising clouds of fine snow that blinded eyes and froze the soul. The temperatures, though slightly less extreme than at the original camp, were still a deadly embrace, demanding every ounce of strength and determination from each member of the village. The procession advanced slowly, a tiny speck of life in the white vastness. The sleds groaned under the weight. The reindeer, though exhausted, pulled with a silent obstinacy, their hooves breaking the ice with a monotonous and persistent sound. Tuma and Boar took turns at the front, clearing a path, their faces marked by cold and worry, but their eyes firm, focused on the invisible horizon Anya described. Nyla, always by Anya's side, cared for her with devotion, offering her small sips of warm tea and ensuring that the hides were always well adjusted. Anya, in her sled, was the pulsating heart of the caravan. Her sharpened ears caught the murmurs of the wind, the subtle vibrations of the ice beneath the sleds, the scent of snow and earth. She felt the wind's direction change, which indicated cracks in the ice or the proximity of rock formations. On several occasions, her warning, a simple gesture of the hand or a whispered word to Nyla, diverted the caravan from invisible dangers, an area of thin ice that could have swallowed a sled, a deep depression where snow accumulated dangerously. The warriors, previously skeptical about the elder's vision, now trusted her blindly, knowing that her senses were the most precise compass. Kael, the young warrior, had grown in stature and spirit during the journey. He observed Anya with a renewed reverence, learning to read the earth's signs through the elder's eyes. He helped care for the reindeer, his gentle touches conveying comfort to the animals, and his young eyes sought the signs Anya described, trying to see the world as she felt it. With each step, the community united even more, each depending on the other, each a vital link in the chain of survival. The children, protected in the sleds, sang softly, their laughter muffled by the wind, yet still a sound of hope that refused to be silenced. After what seemed like centuries, not just weeks, the tundra began to change. Anya felt it first, a slight decrease in the intensity of the biting wind, a different scent in the air, less metallic and more earthy. The vibrations beneath the ice seemed softer, less rigid. She raised her head, a wide smile forming on her wrinkled lips. "It's close," she whispered to Nyla, her voice laden with deep emotion. "I feel life. I feel the promise." Tuma, who was at the front, stopped abruptly. He rubbed his eyes, incredulous. In the distance, where the whiteness seemed to yield, there was a dark patch. It was not a mirage. It was an area where the snow was less deep, revealing patches of withered yet still nutritious vegetation that the wind had swept clear. The reindeer, sensing the change, raised their heads, their noses sniffing the air with excitement. A cry of joy and relief erupted from the caravan, echoing across the tundra. The village hastened to the new land. The reindeer, freed from the sleds, ran to the patches of pasture, their hungry muzzles tearing at the vegetation with eagerness. The scene was a balm for the eyes and the soul. The warriors, the women, the children, all fell to the snow, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down their frozen faces. They had arrived. They had survived. Anya was carefully lifted from the sled, and Naila helped her feel the earth beneath her feet. She knelt, her wrinkled hands touching the soil, feeling the texture of the dry grass, the promise of life. The wind still blew, but it seemed softer, less threatening. Scarcity would not disappear overnight, but here, in this new home, there was a chance. The village, with renewed energy, began to set up its tents, the fire crackling with new vigor. The story of Anya, the blind elder who had guided them through darkness and ice, would be told for generations, a beacon of hope and resilience. That night, under a starry sky that seemed brighter than ever, the community gathered, not to mourn, but to celebrate life, unity, and the ancestral wisdom that had saved them. Anya, sitting near the fire, felt the warmth of her people, the pulse of life she had helped preserve. The true vision, she knew, was not just to feel the way, but to ignite the flame of hope in everyone's hearts, proving that human resilience, guided by faith and connection, would always find its path, even in the merciless vastness of Yakutia. Life continued, an eternal testament to the strength of the human spirit. Life continued, an eternal testament to the strength of the human spirit. In the days that followed their arrival at the new pastures, a different energy permeated the village. The initial relief transformed into a silent vigor, a renewed determination to build a new home. The tents, previously hastily erected, were now raised with a care bordering on reverence, each tie, each hide, positioned to offer maximum protection against the cold, which, though less intense, was still a constant presence. The women, led by Naila, organized supplies with impressive efficiency, rationing what they had and seeking new food sources in the more generous tundra vegetation. The men, under the guidance of Tuma and Boar, not only set up camp, but also explored the surroundings, mapping the area, identifying safe routes and potential dangers. The reindeer herd, now with access to pastures, slowly recovered, their emaciated bodies gaining weight, their eyes, previously dull with hunger, now shining again with the vitality of life. Anya, though still weak, felt the pulse of the village with a clarity that surpassed any sight. Sitting near the central fire, wrapped in warm hides, she heard the sounds of new life, the children's laughter, stronger and more carefree, the murmur of conversations, now permeated with hope, the sound of reindeer hooves grazing, a melody of abundance. Naila, always by her side, described what Anya could not see, the details of the new landscapes, the colors of the sky, the sparkle of snow under the sun. "It's a good place, my sister," Naila whispered, her fingers intertwined with Anya's. "A place of new beginnings." Anya smiled, her mind painting images more vivid than any eye could capture, feeling the gratitude and deep connection that united her people. The warriors, especially Kyle, had matured. Kyle, who was once an impetuous youth, now moved with a thoughtful gravity. He spent hours observing Anya, trying to understand how her other senses compensated for her lack of sight, how she saw the world with a depth that he, with his young eyes, still did not comprehend. He dedicated himself to the reindeer, caring for them with a tenderness that surprised the elders, knowing that the village's life depended on each of them. The story of the blind elder who had guided them through the darkest danger was not just a legend. It was a living lesson, a constant reminder that true strength resided in unity, ancestral wisdom, and the ability to see beyond the obvious. Winter was still long, and life in Yakutia would never be easy. But the most acute hunger had been driven away, and paralyzing fear replaced by unwavering resilience. The village had found not only new pastures, but a new strength within itself. The journey had forged stronger bonds, revealed hidden courage, and reaffirmed the importance of each individual in the tapestry of the community. Anya's wisdom, her unwavering faith, and her connection with the earth and her people had ignited a flame that not even the harshest winter could extinguish. That night, under a starry sky that seemed to embrace the tundra with a blanket of diamonds, Anya felt a deep peace. She had done her part. The village would prosper, not by luck, but by its own strength and unity. Vision, she now knew, was not just what the eyes could see, but what the heart could feel, what the soul could guide. And in every laugh, in every word of hope, in every beat of a reindeer's hoof, Anya saw the future of her people, bright and eternal, a testament to human resilience in the merciless vastness of Yakutia.